doing whatever I can proudly as their local member. Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker.
I thank the member for Crangham-Wright. I call the member for Indi.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Can I acknowledge your words and support as another Victorian, and particularly your words about telecommunications. So the story I want to tell the House today is very similar to the member for Crangham-Wright. It's a tribute to community, to volunteers, backed by a very effective government. So my story began the week before Christmas, the Sunday. We'd heard it was going to be a really hot day. We knew it was going to be bad, and it was. And it was around lunchtime the word went out that the fire had begun at Barnawartha, heading south down the Indigo Valley, had jumped the Hume Highway. And it burnt, a really intensive wildfire. And I'm going to spare the details, except to say that about 6 hours later it rained. And that rain, combined with the support, stopped the fire about 10k short of Wodonga, the major city in my electorate. But it's what happened afterwards that I want to place on the record in this House today. I want to talk about the work of the CFA to District 24, to Paul King and to all your team, to the Districts 23 and 22, to the over 70 fire brigades that turned up to support us in the Indigo Valley. I want to acknowledge New South Wales Rural Fire Services and their fire rescue, crossing the border, coming over, and the work you did up at the Gap. I want to say, not only did you come on the day, but you stayed and you stayed and you stayed. And then 3 weeks later, when the fire came out of that log, and again, very close to Wodonga, you were there and you stopped it at the top of the Leniva Valley. Hard work on very rugged country. To the airborne wing, the magic of your work with those helicopters swooping up the water out of the dam, the siren going and stopping that fire. To all the private providers who provided slip-ons and the many individuals who turned up. To the Red Cross people who staffed the Emergency Relief Centre in Wodonga. To the locals, hoteliers who provided accommodation for the families that were evacuated. Thank you. To the Incident Control Centre, to Graham Healy. Congratulations, Graham, on your Fire Service Medal in the Australia Day Honours. And to all the agencies who gathered regularly at that Incident Control Centre to go through what had happened to what needed to happen, as we looked at the images coming back from the helicopters and we actually tried to work out what we needed to do next. So those regular meetings, keeping all the agencies in contact, made a huge difference. To the Victorian Government, today I'd like to pay particular attention to the Premier Daniel Andrews for coming the day after, spending that whole day with us, touring the Indigo Valley, seeing what happened, talking to the farmers. To the Emergency Services Minister, Jane Garrett, touring the valley again and making sure that all the arrangements were in order. They were there when we needed them. They came and they listened. They heard the stories of Coyle's sheep. They heard the stories of the 4 houses that were burnt at Mason's Gap and the 39 houses that weren't burnt. They heard of no serious injuries and how that policy of protecting assets and keeping people safe is really working. To the local Member of Parliament for Benambra, Bill Tilley, he was constantly a presence, making sure that issues were heard, things were addressed. To Christine Ferguson, the Regional Manager of the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and to all your staff, and particularly for being with us on Christmas Day. We know you had other things that you could have been doing, but the fact that you chose to come and share it with us was really appreciated. To local government, to Jerry Smith at Indigo, to Patience Harrington at Wodonga, to all your staff, your commitment to being there, to doing what needed to be done, and still there, particularly to Jerry and your staff in the weeks afterwards. To the ABC as our emergency broadcaster, to the Border Morning Mail and the North East newspapers, to Prime TV and Win TV. Never ever have I felt so strongly the need for really strong local regional media. You did such a fantastic job on the days and the days afterwards. Thank you. But for me, the unique experience of this time was it was my valley, my community that burned. It was my community that then came in to do what needed to be doing. They came to help me and my family and the other hundreds of families that got burned. Our houses were okay, sure, but our fences had burned, our water pipes had burned, our stock were burned, our sheds were burned, our gardens were burned. And I watched and experienced as my community and neighbours gathered, first on the scene to help with gathering the stock and sorting out the injured from the uninjured. people who turned up with food, large plates of lasagna. Never have I sort of welcomed such food coming from other people, the cakes, the slices. And then the people got underway with the working bees, helping with the house water, with the stock water. To the Middle Indigo Primary School, holidays, to Tammy Zuba, who opened up the school. And I have to say, Indigo Valley's got two community institutions. We've got the fire shed and we've got the school. So to Tammy opening the school and keeping it open for weeks provided a public place for people to gather. And together with Rachel Proctor and the parents of the Middle Indigo School offered childcare. So when their parents were out working, there was a safe place for the kids and a place for food to go and people to meet. To Blaze Aid came and set up at the Barney Sports Ground. And for the past month, in teams of 5, they've gone out to all of our farms. They've helped with that heartbreaking work of pulling up the fences, the pipes, dismantling the sheds. And they've come and they've listened and provided such practical support. And then once a week they invite us farmers down to the Barney Sports Ground so we can go and socialise and get to know them. And there's a whole new community that's grown up, a national community really. We've had people from the Gold Coast, from Adelaide, from Mornington Peninsula, and of course from our local Albury-Wodonga, who've come out on their days off, joined these local teams, got on with their overalls, and up the valley they've gone and been such amazing support. To the Belvoir Rotary who have come out and offered us a barbecue, great. To very special individuals, and I'd now like to name some of them at the risk of embarrassing them. To Bob from Longrenong. So it was Christmas time and Bob arranged for some hams to be delivered up our valley. And we've since found out over $10,000 of hams got delivered to every single home and to the CFA. And it was such a beautiful thing to be able to sit down there and eat this really tasty ham and know that people were thinking of us. To Katrina and Glenn, our local Australia Post people, thank you for what you did. Checking in with everybody, keeping an eye on us. To the CFA leadership team. To Jim and Trish Hibberson, fantastic job. Jim as captain, Trish as communications person, making sure that people knew what they needed to know. To Dave McDonald and all the team, thank you very much. To Jenny Clark and Donna Close, well, I think words won't ever describe the energy, the persistence, the resilience that you put in being at that fire shed, feeding all the firefighters as they came through, keeping the smile up, getting the rosters in place and making sure that there was someone there all the time. So in closing, I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of the learnings from this experience. To the old guys in Indigo Valley and Barnawartha, to Joe Baines and Gordon Pooley, who take me aside and they say, Cathy, we know about fires. We were here in 1939, we were here in 1952, and you know about 2003, 2006, 2009, 2015. So there's nothing new for our rural communities in this experience of fire. Yet every time it seems to take us with such a shock. So there needs to be some way that we can take the learnings of this and incorporate it into our culture. Summer comes, fires come. And we know the devastation, but we also know what needs to be done. In my community, we've learned the lessons of Kinglake, Marysville, Murrindindi. We've got really good communication systems, and that incident control centre work well. But I really want to pick up on the words from my member for Corangamite, the absolute need for mobile phone and NBN. Where it worked, it was great. But where we had those black spots, the community really suffered. And we're relying so much now on going onto the broadband to get your information. But if you've got no access, if your mobile phone doesn't work, all that sort of infrastructure just leaves us behind. So a huge cry out to the Victorian Government to continue to support the Commonwealth Government mobile phone black spot program and help us invest in those fire-prone areas which Telstra, the telcos, are never going to be able to do by themselves. So I'd like to bring my words to a close. I think it's one of those times in my life where I felt so proud to be part of a community, so proud to be part of a community that's connected, a community that works, a community that's actually networked, not only during the fire, but the support afterwards, and days later when we still gather and share our stories. That sense of belonging to a community and representing a community is so strong. So to the people of Barnawartha, to the people of Indigo Valley, to Yakandanda, to Wurrigi, to Wodonga and the surrounding areas, just a heartfelt thank you.